And welcome to this degenerate Friday edition of Bury Your Bookie. I'm Jeff DeForest. An overload of sporting activity last night. Lots of action across the ice in the NHL, the NBA, and of course, we had this gentleman's favorite sporting event, maybe of the year. Actually, was in attendance with those guys that when they do the drone shot of the crowd, and you're asking yourself, why would anybody want to be a part of it? Was a part of it when they took the draft on the road. We welcomed the professor into the program. And of course, first round of the NFL draft last night. I'm still waiting. Did they have Mel Kiper on a dilaudid drip by the time Pittsburgh bypassed on Shedeur Sanders? Because certainly seemed to be the central theme, and maybe the only thing that would have anybody that wasn't a diehard football and college football fan like you are watching round two. How are you, Professor?
I'm excellent. Well, I'm good and I'm bad. Obviously, I'm a huge NFL draft head. Yes, I'm one of those nerds. I actually, when I was in high school, was paying I believe at the time it was $29.95 for the Mel Kiper big draft book, which was like 700 pages that he had run off on a photocopier. I mean,
Yeah.
again, printing technology wasn't quite the same in those days, but yes, back in high school, I actually used to buy that. So I'm a huge draft nerd and have been for a very long time. That's the good. So NFL draft time, draft weekend, I always enjoy. The bad time is like I kind of feel like the NBA is in a conspiracy to keep me from gambling because like these first round series and these lines are just brutal. I mean, unwatchable basketball and very tough to make a pick on the lines. It's been a rough week.
Now, would you be betting on the draft? I mean, are you placing wagers? I
I'm
would
not one of
imagine
those guys.
it was
I don't.
prohibitive. Cam Ward going number one. It seemed to be a general consensus. Although,
Yeah, it's like minus 10,000 or
yes,
whatever the hell it was. I mean, and then capped out at like $200 bets. You get bet $200 and win 46 cents or whatever the hell the
you're betting Secretariat in the
compensation
second
was.
race at
Yeah.
Beulah Park, the year after he won the Triple Crown. All right, what did you think in general? And I know you have some theories about how teams actually should go about or base their philosophies on drafting, which we'll get to with your big board for this week, which I thought was brilliant. It should be sent to every. And I think you people will agree here, you fans of Bury Your Bookie will agree that the professor's strategies for drafting clearly outweigh and ascend any amount of sabermetrics analytics and any kind of numerology or even live scouting and film breakdown that you could possibly do. So we'll get to that. But what did you think in general? And I know you were not a big fan of Shedeur Sanders as a projected NFL talent. That if some team drafted him in the second round, they're probably not doing themselves a disservice. But if you were going to take him as a high first round pick, in all likelihood, you might not be looking at Jamarcus Russell, but could be looking in that direction. So, what did you think overall?
I mean, on Shador, I think it wasn't the NFL people who got this wrong at all. It was the people, again, for various reasons. Look, Shador is one of those guys. He attracts a lot of attention, both positive and negative. There are people who love him. There are people who can't stand him. The nonsense with the fancy watch and the celebrations. And let's be honest, Dion is a polarizing figure. There are people who love Dion. There are people who hate Dion. Shador was the show. He was the attraction in terms of, and look, with quarterbacks just naturally are that guy. But I don't know that at any point, the Shador is a top 10 pick, the Shador is a top 5 pick, the Shador is a number. I don't know if that was real at any point during the process. And I think if you go back and sort of look at it at the end of the season, like the people who broadcast this stuff and want to make attention out of this stuff were pushing that out as a story, but almost instantly the Titans and the actual NFL people were, oh no, Ward's a lot better. Like, I mean, Ward went from, I think he initially was like plus 650 or plus 750 to be the number one all pick, and within like 2 weeks it dropped down to Ward's the favorite, and then in the last month went to it's Ward.
Yeah.
So again, I don't know how much the NFL, before all the stories about his bad interviews or his arrogance or whatever. I don't know if the NFL ever really was into Shador as I think certainly by drafting, but really it's probably been this way for a month. The absolute earliest Shador was ever going to go was Pittsburgh at 21. And that's only because while waiting out the Aaron Rodgers nonsense, Pittsburgh's quarterback position is a mess. Um, I think Luby actually said it on your previous show. Like the bad interview stuff and the way that drops you a couple spots, maybe. You know, that gets like one team or one coach off the board, maybe. That does not drop you completely out of, from top five to first round. I think NFL teams look at it the way I look at it, which is he's got a below average arm. Again, like a lot of college quarterbacks, has he figured out how to make downfield throws without having, that howitzer? Yeah, but we've seen a lot of. I mean, there's a lot of dudes playing offensive coordinator who that was. Kellen Moore was that way in college. He made a lot of throws down the field on Boise State that looked like punts the way they hung up in the air, but he got them complete because his receivers got wide open. Shador, same thing, working with a very talented group of wide receivers, did make some, but you watch the throws you watch him throw outs, even on the the thinner hash marks. He does not have that level of NFL arm. Does he throw in the middle of the field very well? Yes, he does. Um, you know, does he have good accuracy? Does he have good timing? Yes, he does. Is it off the charts? No, it's not. And again, you look at the big arm throws, he doesn't have them. It's not his back. You go back and watch that Nebraska game, and I'm not going to say he didn't get killed by his offensive line in that game. He did, but the pick six that really took that game from Nebraska as an advantage to this is over early was I don't have enough arm to get this past a corner who's a playmaker kind of throw, and that to me is the issue with Shador. The real issue with Shador isn't attitude. It isn't the celebrations. It isn't Dion. It's that his arm is just not there. And then again, you look at the recent history of these guys who have been taken. I think if anybody killed Shador, it was Mac Jones, who very similar to Shador in terms of the way he played in college, and he got to the NFL, and he did not have enough arm for the NFL. I think that's the issue with Shador. I don't think it's
Well, and
the attitude.
it's because of the pressure to win and the desire to win on behalf of virtually every NFL team, and now even more so, win right away. They're more likely to try and squeeze somebody that isn't deserving into the first round at the quarterback position than they are to take somebody completely
Oh,
out.
100%.
So, I mean, the idea and the implication, the assertions that were being, and you talked about this before on one of our other shows, that this was racially motivated, or people don't like the successful black man, and that's why they despise Dion enough to not draft his son, are so far off base. And not to say there aren't racial elements that pervade their way, unfortunately, into sports and sports decisions, but not to this extent,
I mean,
where
again,
you're not going to draft a winning quarterback because you don't like Deion Sanders.
look at last year's draft. Penix was like 25 years old, like three major knee injuries early in his college career at Alabama. And by the way, also a black quarterback. Went 12 in a shocking development to a team who had just given Kirk Cousins like $100 million.
Exactly.
So again, I don't buy the racism stuff. Did Dion and the attitude play into it a little bit? Maybe. But again, that's the kind of thing that drops you two or three spots. That's the kind of thing that like one team will get stubborn about. The entire league does not pass on you for those reasons. Again, I think the core issue here is that the narrative that Shador was like a really high end prospect was never true to begin with. That was a completely whole cloth made up narrative that to some degree, the person who started that was Dion. I mean, I don't know that you ever had an NFL scout who was, oh yeah, Shadur's a top 5 pick. I don't know that anybody ever believed that. And got slapped in the face last night with reality. And it's those same analysts who made that narrative up and propagated it that are the ones that are upset about it. I don't think there's a lot of NFL front offices who are hanging their head right now, like, "Oh, we didn't draft Shador. What a disaster!"
Well, Mel Kiper, he looked like Ron Popeil trying to sell
Again, Mel
poster,
Kiper,
and it was amazing.
and I love Mel Kiper,
Slicing
by
the
the way, but
story.
yeah, I
No,
don't.
I'm not a Kiper fan, but he was gargling with moose by the middle of the first round, thinking if Pittsburgh doesn't take this guy, I'm going to look pretty foolish, and kept insisting all throughout that everybody was making a very blind ass mistake. All right, drafting strategies, very interesting. And that's one of the aspects of the whole activity that I sort of enjoy. Many people thought Cleveland would bungle away somehow the second pick overall, and maybe
And
go
I
away
mean, and if
from
Travis
Hunter.
Hunter reaches his potential, if he does turn out to be a Pro Bowler on both sides of the ball, you're probably going to say, in retrospect, Cleveland probably did blow this draft.
Possible, but I would have been tempted to. I thought they more than were accommodated for their desire, desiring to
Oh
move
no,
into
I
the
think
spot.
that I think they made a great move,
Yeah,
but it illustrates that pretty much no matter what you do, there is a chance you could be as safe as you want to be,
sure.
and there is a chance it will blow up in your face.
Very much so, and they got a monster of a player in everybody's opinion. Also,
Hmm.
as they, you can't say they didn't improve their ball club, and they're sitting there likely with a high first round pick next year, plus an extra second round pick this year. So that was a lot to offer for the three spot change. Although most people thought, and if you look at the Shedeur Sanders highlight film, it only convinces you that Travis Hunter is the most amazing athlete that is coming out of the
I
draft.
mean,
He
I
made any number of circus catches on wild adjustments to badly thrown balls by Shedeur Sanders that were way off the mark or destined for trouble. And
oh no,
he would
he
come
has
back
got
and save. Yeah,
unreal hands and athletic ability. The fun thing to me that jumps off about Travis Hunter is the untapped potential as a wide receiver. Because if you watch his film as a wide receiver, he's just raw as hell. His route tree is basically non-existent. He's not good at hand fighting off the line. Offensively, defensively, he's excellent at it. But he doesn't necessarily. I mean, he manages to separate without being a gigantic dude, without being great off the line. He's just an unreal athlete, and again, his hands are off the charts.
yeah,
His hands are as good as any receiver I have ever seen. To say nothing of defensive backs, uh, like I think the worst case scenario with Travis Hunter is he's Patrick Peterson, is that he's just an athletically dominant corner who you slot in at the Pro Bowl every season until that athleticism starts to slip as his career progresses. I honestly I don't know where the ceiling is, because if you get him in as a wide receiver and coach him well, he's got Pro Bowl potential on that side of the ball too. Do I think you can do the thing where you play full time at both positions? No, I don't. I think that is literally physically impossible.
yeah.
No,
Unless you're like Jim Thorpe, it'd be tough to do. All right,
again,
yeah.
I just don't believe that's possible in the modern NFL. But I freely admit his potential is there isn't. I mean, there's no cap.
Oh,
It's
these catches were sensational. I mean, they're showcasing Sanders, and I'm thinking that this guy is throwing a ball like it has a gyroscope in it, and he keeps getting bailed out by Hunter and the other Colorado receivers who are making circus catches. And as you said, if the ball was even thrown anywhere in his direction, it was amazing how many times Hunter got his hands on it. No matter how many other hands were in the area. All right. But the draft strategies, I mean, people are relying on all kinds of analytics and sabermetrics and whatever scouting they do and artificial intelligence and interviews. And you've outlined this, and I believe that this video should be sent to ESPN for broadcast tonight. I really believe they should show this because as far off as they were, Riddick was guilty of it also with the Shedeur Sanders story. This probably would have set them going in the right direction. So you have your draft strategies that maybe go a little bit against the grain, but probably should be applied.
and let's go to the big board,
This
which
is the big
is
part of those things. Yes.
the big board of the best and unconventional NFL draft strategies. And there's a number of things we're going to highlight here, Defo. We'll
All
start
right.
with number 5, which is something, it's only happened twice, but when it did, fans were absolutely horrified, which is drafting a kicker or a punter in the first round kind of works.
Yeah.
Like, again, this is not something I necessarily advise, but the Raiders have done it twice, and they've gotten 2 Hall of Fame level players out of the deal. I mean, Ray Guy is still, like, 50 years later, he is still the guy that the modern NFL punt. You go back and watch the films on this, like, dudes are kicking the ball with a 2-second hang time. Dudes are kicking the ball 40 yards. Ray Guy is still the guy. Whoever you think the greatest punter is in the NFL right now, Ray Guy was better than him. I mean, there's a reason the punting award is still named after this man, 50 years later, as that part of the game has absolutely evolved beyond the charts. And then Sebastian Janikowski,
Yes.
everybody amazed at how kickers make it from 50, make it from 60. I think Sebastian Janikowski was actually better from like 55 yards than he was from 30 yards. Like, again, Hall of Fame level players, the only 2 times this has happened in NFL history.
Yeah, I do remember that there was, quite a bit of noise after Ray Guy was taken in the first, a punter in the first round, and turned out to be a tremendous asset. And Janikowski, what was, as you said, crushing them from 55 yards in college, and continued to do the same thing in the pros. All right, number 5, drafting kickers or punters in the first round is not a bad strategy. Number 4.
Number 4, and this one people think it's only one guy, but it's actually more than one guy, and that is Mr. Irrelevant's really not that bad a pick. I mean, obviously, it has now all become about Brock Purdy and his success, uh, but it's not just Brock Purdy. Ryan Suckup was Mr. Irrelevant in the 2009 draft, went on to a 16-year NFL career where he's made the Pro Bowl like 4 times. Marty Moore, a linebacker from Kentucky, taken by the New England Patriots, was a special teams player for the early part of the Patriots' successful run, then went to the Cleveland Browns and actually started 16 games for them. Then went back to New England as a special teams player and won another Super Bowl. You look at the overall hit percentage in terms of making a roster for Mr. Irrelevant, and it is off the charts for a 7th-round pick. They make the roster something like 32% of the time throughout history. So, yeah, you can laugh at these guys. You can talk about that stupid parade they throw for them every season. I can't remember, with some small town in the Midwest. But it is called the Lozman. I just looked it up. It is called the Lozman Trophy, and it is in Balboa. So it originally was in Newport Beach, California. So that's a big downgrade to move it to the Midwest. But again, Mr. Irrelevant doesn't seem to be a bad pick. So I would advise start trading down for Mr. Irrelevant. You have that late 6th-round pick. Move down to the bottom of the 7th and try to grab Mr. Irrelevant.
That phone should be ringing off the hook, whoever has possession of that last pick in the 7th round of the draft. And you're likely to get somebody that is going to be inconsequential, but every now and then there's a gem. Brock Purdy certainly what would have been worthy with what he's accomplished. I don't know that he's worth the money they're about to pay him. But
I don't know that, but you got an NFL starting quarterback with the last pick of the draft.
Could have been a first rounder, and you end up getting a starting QB. Yeah, as you said, with the last pick of the draft. Maybe don't overlook Mr. Irrelevant. All right, that's number 4. Number 3 in the the off-base draft strategies that are successful.
Number 3, and we've got good news for Shador, which is that the guy who stays in the green room forever, who everybody makes fun of, usually turns out to be a pretty good player. Again, ESPN has been playing Aaron Rodgers' video clip of sitting in the green room for like 20 consecutive years.
Yes.
Laramie Tunsil was that guy one year. He's gone on. He's 5-time Pro Bowler who the Dolphins traded for, I don't know, all of Houston's first-round draft picks for half a decade. Lamar Jackson famously sat there with his girlfriend. Hard to tell if he was getting ready to cry or fall asleep during his time. I mean, again, are there some misses? Sure. Johnny Manziel has probably become the most famous guy who sat in the green room and then totally bombed out. But the hit percentage on this is really, really high. The guy who sits around in the green room forever, usually turns out to be a hell of a football player.
Yeah, we had that with Warren Sapp dropping like a rock for
He
different
is another
reasons.
one.
But the Rodgers thing, I'll never forget. Dolphins had Gus Frerotte at quarterback. Everybody thought that Alex Smith and Rodgers were going to go 1-2. Smith goes number one, leaving it wide open. And then the Dolphins take Ronnie Brown instead as Rodgers dropped all the way down. And after that, it was a free fall because there were many teams that didn't seem like they were in need of a quarterback, and they all whiffed on this guy. The Tunsil thing with the gas mask is classic. If you're only getting audio on this, the illustration is spot on as his stock fell, and the guy's a monster. And then Lamar Jackson, two-time MVP, sitting there just absolutely destroyed that he was being bypassed by everybody in the first round. So the green room wait. That's the guy you want to take. It does bode well for Sanders today in the second round. That's number three. Number two.
Number two, and I would argue that this particular draft strategy might have been the single most important one in determining the outcome of the 2024 NFL season. And that is, we hear a lot of talk about Defo. Well, they're just going to take the best player available. They're sitting in a good position where they can just grab the best player on the board. And the best player on the board, generally speaking, is a Georgia guy who's got a horrible driving crime involved, whether it's DUI, whether it's vehicular manslaughter, whether it's, he led the cops on a 3-state chase while driving 140 miles an hour. If there is a UGA guy sitting on the board who has done something horrible behind the wheel of a car,
Yeah.
absolutely draft him. This has been the cornerstone of the Philadelphia Eagles drafting philosophy for like 3 years now. I was stunned when the Williams, the UGA kid, fell down the board. I think he actually went in number 14 after being projected in the top 10. I was like, what's the over under before Philly moves up and grabs this kid? Is it like 2 picks now? So if you have this available, absolutely take the Georgia guy who has done something horrifying behind the wheel of a car. Important side note, though, don't do it with an Alabama guy who has done something bad behind the wheel of a car.
That's wrought with disaster. Yeah, the mugshot should be the thumbnail when they put out the media guide and they have the illustration of their first round pick. And it's a proven strategy. It's worked well. All right, so that leads us to the number one draft strategy that teams should embrace in the National Football League.
And again, this plays into the Shedeur Sanders thing, sort of, but I think it is actually the real explanation behind his fall, and that is the whole thing about big armed quarterbacks who don't really throw the ball accurately in college. It kind of works. Now, for our pictures, we use Josh Allen and we use Patrick Mahomes. Both of guys were known as guys coming into the draft with monster arms who had accuracy issues, but we could easily throw up Jordan Love's picture into this. We could throw Lamar Jackson's picture into this. We could throw, if you want to go way back, Matthew Stafford's picture into this. People don't really remember. But Stafford, even though he went number one overall, was very much of the model. He's got a generational arm. He can really spin it, but he doesn't always throw the ball accurately. Again, for a while, the pervading theory among particularly media types, I don't know how many scouts were like, oh, the big arm doesn't matter as much. You can now game plan. When Drew Brees became a sensation, obviously not the biggest arm in the history of the league. If a guy's accurate, but you look at the top guys right now, a lot of them fall into this category of, guys with monster arms who don't look like they can hit the broad side of the barn sometimes in college. The NFL has figured out a way to fix that issue, and that's really the model for guys, right now. I mean, I would also argue you could kind of say this is what baseball has become. All these relievers who throw the ball 105 miles an hour, but sometimes can't hit the strike zone. Like every roster's got like 3 of those in Major League Baseball right now. So if you are a scout, you maybe don't want to watch college tapes as much as you want to take the kid to like the carnival there and go to that machine where they just show how fast you can throw a ball, because that's maybe the single biggest factor in the quarterback position right now.
Excellent stuff. I would think, and we're going to send this tape to ESPN. I would hope that they would have the consideration to air this so that as you listen to these guys babble on about Shedeur Sanders getting
I don't think Louis Riddick's going to agree with me.
Yeah, I mean, they're playing Isaac Hayes music in the background as they're talking about this guy, and you're thinking, no, it makes perfect sense. But you have a justification for somebody to grab him at least early in round two. All right, I know you scored with the Magpies again. It wouldn't be a
I
Friday,
did.
Degenerate Friday, without an Australian rules football pick from the professor, as it's not what you would consider to be your mainstream time of the year with college football and basketball, but more than making amends for it. But with your incredible efficiency at picking Australian rules football. So, do we have a play today?
Yeah, we're taking Brisbane tonight, laying 12.5 to St. Kilda. And I don't even know. Do they call it a kickoff? They call it a ruck off, whatever the hell they call it. The starting
I
time
think
is
they call it a
11:20.
jerk off. I mean,
Yeah,
after it was abandoned by ESPN once they got mainstream.
the starting time is 11:20 p.m. So 11:20 tonight, Friday night. We're taking Brisbane, laying 12.5 to St. Kilda, to the Saints.
12 and a half, not too much delay there. And the
No,
Magpies.
no, no. Aussie rules, I mean, 30, 40, 50-point wins are very common. So the points aren't so scary there. And then, I mean, you look at the two teams, St. Kilda, more in the middle of the table, where Brisbane's just their only loss of the year was to the Magpies last week. Now they got throttled, but I think you have to take into consideration the Magpies are just on a huge roll right now and kind of ignore that one.
Is one of
Or
your fears, though, Professor, that you get cut off on Australian rules football by whatever?
I no,
Mark
because the
you
limit's so
agree on?
low. The limits are so low to start with. Like I don't know how much more they can drop them.
Our
So
buddy Pete Aiello, the great race caller at Gulfstream Park, was on a show with me, and he was telling a story about how he got cut off by the Miami Highlight version of Highlight now, which is as hybrid a version of the game as you could possibly get.
really,
And he was nailing this stuff. They don't
you
even
got
have
limited at Miami Highlight. Is that even
cut
legal?
off. That's it. No more. No mas.
I don't know if I've ever been heard of anybody ever getting cut off at a
This isn't
pari-mutuels.
the old school for the people uninitiated.
I feel like the only
Miami
two
Highlight when it was
people
great.
are your guy and like Whitey Bulger are the only two people in the history of Highlight to get cut off on
Cut off
Highlight
on
betting.
this, which is only being bet heavily in like Puerto Rico, as far as my understanding.
Again, we don't really go through this because in Florida we only have Hard Rock. I know a few people who have said they've been cut off on Hard Rock. I'm not sure I believe it
Yeah.
because I know a lot of other people who have fired a lot of cash at Hard Rock. Um, I know DraftKings and FanDuel are kind of infamous for it nationally, but we're not dealing with FanKings and FanDuel and DraftKings in Florida. And thanks to Ron DeSantis, we won't be until like 2050. So
How much cash was in that attaché at that clandestine meeting between the
I
governor
don't know.
and head of the Seminole tribe? I would imagine that that was a very interesting
Well, you
exchange.
remember when we
Does DeSantis himself carry this suitcase out of there, or does he have one of his guys do it?
the famous story is, of course, is how the Pilgrims bought the city or the island of Manhattan
Yeah,
for like beads and
24
furs or
bucks.
whatever. I think we got like the reverse now, where like the Seminoles bought the gambling rights to the state of Florida for alligator meat and oranges or something.
I don't think that's happening. All right, excellent stuff, Professor. Good luck with your play and outstanding. Well, we'll get that tape out to the NFL executives, and I think they really, if they aren't already subscribing to some of these theories, then they definitely should take them into
I
consideration.
mean, again, the Philadelphia Eagles Super Bowl run, I would argue, the key strategy
Largely
was
fueled by the Georgia thing, yes.
drafting Georgia players who have done something horrible behind the wheel of a car.
If you don't have a DUI, then we're not interested.
Oh, yeah, we're not. Again, I want the Dolphins to draft Tate Ratledge as the offensive lineman out of Georgia. I hope he, goes out and celebrates by getting a DUI.
And he rolls into a Wendy's window sometime soon and can't explain what caused him to do that. All right, thanks, Professor. Always a pleasure. You have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Have a great one, Dave.
The Professor, ladies and gentlemen. Interesting draft strategies. All right, we'll see what happens. Day 2 of the draft, you had wild stuff going on all across the ice in the NHL. Bloodbath of a series, now 2-0. Our hometown team here, the Florida Panthers, over the Tampa Bay Lightning. That was supposed to be a toe-to-toe bloodbath, and it's proven out to be that. This guy Hagel decapitates Sasha Barkov in the game yesterday. We don't know his status. That might change the complexion of the series. Toronto, 2 straight 3-2 overtime victories over Ottawa. They go up 3-0. Minnesota and Las Vegas, we had Mike Jones yesterday touting, I mean, as if he was Don Cherry himself, touting Minnesota and saying that they were live in this game and they win at 5-2. And of course, Winnipeg gets trounced by St. Louis. So that series now at 2-1. And the NBA Pistons hang tough but lose to the Knicks. OKC comes back from 29 down. Jean Moran injured in the game. And the Clippers, I mean, just wiped the floor with the Denver Nuggets. That had to be the most unanticipated outcome that you could have imagined, that they'd get blown out by 34 as the Clippers hosted Game 3 of that series. All right, lots of action tonight. Good luck with all your plays. We'll see you on Monday with the next edition for The Professor. I'm Jeff DeForest. See you Monday, next edition of Bury Your Bookie.